Lily had a way of walking into any room and making it feel brighter. People were drawn to her like moths to a flame. That wild laugh, that carefree confidence I never quite managed to have. She was chaos wrapped in sunshine, and I was the quiet one who cleaned up after the storms she left behind. I used to joke that she got all the charm, and I got all the responsibility. But the truth was, I didn't mind. I felt needed. When we were kids, I'd stay up late helping her with homework she'd forgotten to do, even if it meant I went to school half awake the next day. As adults, not much changed. While I worked double shifts at the accounting firm, Lily drifted from one dream to another, acting, designing, something with influence. Every month or so, she'd call me with a new idea that needed just a little help to get started. I always said yes. I told myself it was what sisters did. They showed up. When she moved in with her latest boyfriend, Nate, I worried but didn't say anything. She sounded happy, and I wanted her to have that. I'd spent years watching her chase freedom while I chased security. I thought if I could just keep supporting her, she'd eventually find her balance. Whenever Mom complained that Lily was too much work, I defended her fiercely. She just needs time, I'd say. She's figuring things out. What I didn't admit was how much I needed to believe that all the money I'd lent her, the chances I'd given her, the emotional weight I carried, would someday mean something. Back then, I didn't see the cracks in our bond. I didn't see how much she had come to rely on my forgiveness, or how easily she assumed I'd always be there to catch her. I only saw the sister I'd spent my life protecting, and I would have done anything, to keep her safe. I didn't know that love, even the purest kind, could be used against you. Not yet, but I was about to learn. It was a Thursday night when my phone rang, and Lily's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer. I was exhausted, half asleep after another 12-hour day at work. But something in me always picked up for her. Her voice came through shaky, panicked. "I messed up, okay? Nate and I are in trouble." I sat up straight, heart thudding. "What kind of trouble?" She sobbed, saying their landlord was threatening eviction. Nate's project hadn't paid out yet. Her last gig fell through, and everything was falling apart. "Please, I don't know what to do. I swear this isn't like before. We just need a little help to get back on track." Her words hit that soft spot in me, the one trained to fix, to rescue, to be the steady one when everyone else fell apart. I didn't even think twice. I logged into my banking app, opened my emergency savings, and transferred enough to cover 3 months of rent. Money I'd been saving for my own rainy day, gone in seconds. When I told her, she burst into tears again. "You're the best sister in the world. I'll pay you back soon, I promise. Nate's just waiting on this deal. Once it clears, we're golden." I wanted to believe her. And in that moment, I did. Hearing her gratitude, that little laugh of relief at the end of her crying, made something in me unclench. I felt useful again, important. Like I'd done what family is supposed to do. That night, I lay awake imagining her and Nate sitting on their couch, maybe ordering takeout, breathing easy because of me. I told myself it was worth it, that I'd helped her stay afloat long enough to find her footing. It never even crossed my mind that I might have just opened the door to something far darker. That this loan wasn't the end of her troubles, but the start of mine. At first, I told myself Lily was just busy. She'd always been a little inconsistent with calls, vanishing for a few days when she was wrapped up in something, then reappearing like nothing happened. So when I didn't hear from her after that night, I gave her space. A few days turned into a week, then 2. Her messages stayed unread. Calls went straight to voicemail. I tried Nate's number too, disconnected. A small ache began to form in my chest, the kind that sits heavy but doesn't quite hurt yet. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe they'd gone on a trip. Maybe they were just trying to figure things out without leaning on me again. But the unease kept growing. On the 12th day, I logged into my bank app. Not out of suspicion, just habit. That's when I froze. My emergency savings, the one I'd sent the loan from, showed a 0 balance. I blinked, thinking it was a glitch. But as I checked my other accounts, my stomach dropped further. My checking account was emptied too. Even my joint account, the one I'd added Lily to years ago, just in case she ever needed help while traveling, was wiped clean. Every cent. Gone. I remember sitting there, the room spinning. My hands trembled as I refreshed the screen again and again, praying it was some sort of error. But the numbers didn't change. My entire financial foundation, years of long nights, skipped vacations, careful budgeting, erased in one swift, silent betrayal. I tried calling her again, over and over. Each ring cut straight to voicemail. I checked her social media, but her profiles were gone, deactivated. Even mutual friends said they hadn't heard from her or Nate in weeks. It was as if they'd both vanished into thin air. When I finally went to the police, I sat across from a tired-looking officer who took notes without much reaction. "You said it was a joint account?" he asked. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Then technically she had legal access to the funds. There's not much we can do." That sentence hit harder than anything. Not much we can do. As if my entire world hadn't just been gutted by someone I loved more than anyone. I filed a fraud report anyway, but deep down I knew. The money was gone. And so was my sister. That night, I sat in the dark staring at the login screen on my phone. Every part of me wanted to believe there was an explanation, that maybe she'd been forced, or tricked, or desperate. But another voice whispered what I didn't want to hear. She'd chosen this. She'd chosen Nate, chosen the easy way out, even if it meant destroying me in the process. The heartbreak didn't come all at once. It crept in slow like a tide. One moment disbelief, the next rage, then silence. I didn't cry that night. I couldn't. I just sat there hollow and cold, realizing the person I'd trusted most had taken everything. Not just my savings, but the part of me that believed family meant safety. And in that emptiness, something else began to stir. Something sharper than grief, quieter than anger. The start of a resolve I didn't yet understand. The days that followed felt like walking through fog. Everything muted, heavy, and painfully slow. I still checked my phone every morning, hoping for a message from Lily. Something, anything. An apology, an explanation. But the silence stretched on like a punishment I didn't remember earning. Meanwhile, life didn't pause for me to catch my breath. The rent was due. My utilities were overdue. The credit card company called twice in one day. Every envelope that landed in my mailbox felt like a small reminder of how foolish I'd been. My savings were gone, and with them, my safety net. I tried to keep up with bills using what little I had left from my paycheck, but it was like trying to plug a sinking ship with my bare hands. By the end of the month, my landlord's patience ran out. He stood at my door, expression blank but final. "You're a good tenant, but I can't keep waiting," he said. I nodded because what else could I do? A week later, I packed my life into 2 suitcases and moved into a cramped room above a noisy laundromat. The paint peeled, the mattress sagged, and the air smelled faintly of detergent and loneliness. At night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed Lily's laugh, the way she'd call me her rock, the endless times she'd say, "I don't know what I'd do without you." I'd scroll through old photos, the 2 of us as kids with matching dresses, our last Christmas together, her wide grin pressed against my shoulder. I stared at those pictures until the images blurred, trying to understand where it all went wrong. My parents didn't make it easier. "You always coddled her," Mom said when I finally told them what happened. "You gave her too much power." Dad just sighed, shaking his head. "You should have known better." Their words sliced deep because they weren't entirely wrong. I had been too trusting, too eager to believe in her goodness. But wasn't that what love was supposed to be? Believing even when others didn't? Still, their blame turned inward. I began to wear it like a weight. Every sleepless night became a quiet interrogation of myself. Why didn't I see it coming? Why did I let her in again and again? Guilt and shame mixed until I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. It wasn't just financial ruin anymore. It was the shattering of something deeper, the loss of safety, the collapse of faith. I used to think betrayal came with noise, with confrontation or closure. But I learned it often comes quietly, wrapped in silence, sealed with love. And that silence was louder than anything I'd ever known. Starting over felt impossible at first, but survival doesn't wait for feelings to catch up. I took the first job that would have me. a position at a small accounting firm on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous, and the pay barely covered rent for my tiny room, but it was something. Every morning, I put on a pressed shirt, tied my hair neatly, and forced myself to walk into that office with my head held high. Even when inside, I still felt like rubble. The first few weeks were exhausting. My coworkers were polite but distant. The kind of people who talked about their weekend trips while I silently calculated how much instant coffee I could stretch until payday. But in that quiet routine, I found structure. The repetition, balancing ledgers, checking numbers, staying late to review files, gave me a strange sense of peace. For once, I was in control of something, even if it was just spreadsheets. Every paycheck, I saved a little. $10, then $20, then $50. I started an emergency fund again, this time locked behind passwords no one else knew. Each transfer felt like reclaiming a piece of myself Lily had taken. Nights that once belonged to grief turned into study hours. I enrolled in online finance courses, determined to earn certifications that could open doors later. I didn't socialize much. I didn't trust easily. My world became quiet, smaller but safer. Pain became my discipline. When I felt tempted to give up, I'd remember the emptiness of my bank account, the echo of that silence when Lily disappeared. It wasn't bitterness that fueled me anymore. It was something sharper. A resolve to never let anyone hold that kind of power over me again. Month by month, I began to breathe again. My savings grew. My posture straightened. For the first time, I started to believe that maybe this broken version of me was becoming something stronger. I didn't need grand apologies or dramatic closures. I just needed proof, in numbers, in effort, in resilience, that I could build a life from nothing, and that it could still be mine. 3 years can change everything. Or at least, that's what I told myself. By then, I'd earned a promotion, moved into a small but cozy apartment, and built a version of life that felt stable. Not perfect, not easy, but mine. The scars were still there, of course, invisible reminders beneath every moment of calm. But I'd learned to live with them, to breathe without flinching at the thought of Lily. That illusion shattered on a rainy Monday morning. Our firm had just been acquired by a larger corporation, which meant a flood of new hires and management changes. The HR department organized a welcome orientation, one of those painfully cheerful events with name tags, pastries, and forced smiles. I sat near the back, sipping burnt coffee, half listening to introductions. And then I heard it. A laugh. That laugh, high, effortless, familiar. My stomach clenched so fast I almost spilled my coffee. I turned my head, slowly, unwillingly, and there she was. Lily. Standing just a few feet away, arm linked with Nate's. Both of them wearing new ID badges, their faces glowing with the kind of confidence that comes from pretending nothing ever happened. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. My brain rejected the sight, like it was trying to protect me. She hadn't changed much. Same honey blonde hair, same careless grin, though a little more polished now. Nate looked smug as ever, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit him, his hand resting on her waist like she was a trophy. Lily's eyes met mine across the room. A flicker, recognition. And then, unbelievably, she smiled. A soft, innocent smile, as if we were just sisters bumping into each other at a coffee shop. No guilt, no apology. Just that infuriating calmness that made my chest tighten. My throat went dry. I wanted to stand up, to shout, "How dare you?" But instead, I froze. The HR manager droned on about company values and growth, but I couldn't hear a word. My pulse roared in my ears. Memories came flooding back. My emptied accounts, the eviction, the sleepless nights. And now she was here, waltzing into my world like nothing had happened. After the session ended, She walked toward me. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. "Wow," she said softly, her voice still sugar-sweet. "I didn't know you worked here. Small world, huh?" Nate hovered behind her, avoiding my eyes. I forced a tight smile, the kind that hides 1,000 unsaid words. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Very small." As they walked away, I sat still, nails digging into my palm under the table. Every part of me wanted to explode, but another part, colder, sharper, whispered something else. Maybe this wasn't just a coincidence. Maybe this was something else, a twist of fate, and for the first time in years I felt that old ache harden into something familiar. Not pain, not fear. Power. Confrontation would have been too easy, too emotional. And I wasn't that person anymore. So when I saw Lily and Nate strutting around the office, laughing with coworkers, pretending to be the picture of success, I made a choice. Silence. Not weakness. Strategy. I kept my distance but paid attention. I learned that Lily had joined the marketing division, and Nate was in operations. During coffee breaks, I listened from afar, letting her voice drift toward me like static. She bragged about her years of project management experience and how she'd worked closely with international clients. I almost laughed. Her longest job before this had lasted 3 months, selling online candles from her bedroom. Nate, meanwhile, claimed to have managed a real estate portfolio, though I remembered the eviction notice that started it all. Still, I said nothing. I focused on my work, quietly excelling, taking on extra audits, earning small nods from the new managers. When they noticed I stayed late and fixed others' mistakes, they started trusting me with more responsibility. My reputation grew without me needing to say a word. At the same time, I started gathering things, small details, harmless at first. A report Lily submitted that looked oddly familiar. I ran a quick search and found it copied almost verbatim from a marketing template online. Nate's spreadsheets, full of inflated figures and estimated returns that didn't line up with actual data. I saved everything: emails, file versions, timestamps. Weeks turned into months, and they seemed to grow bolder. Lily organized meetings, flashing her charm at the executives. Nate began name-dropping the CEO like they were best friends. I watched it all unfold with eerie calm, almost detached, as if I were studying 2 strangers instead of the people who had gutted my life. My coworkers began confiding in me too. They'd whisper about Lily taking credit for ideas, or Nate losing files. I listened, nodded, encouraged professionalism. Outwardly, I stayed neutral, but inside, a quiet rhythm built. Patience, precision. I knew revenge didn't need to be loud to be devastating. It just needed timing. One evening, after everyone left, I sat at my desk, staring at a folder labeled Internal Audit Q3. Inside was everything I needed: their lies, their numbers, their digital fingerprints. I closed the laptop gently and smiled to myself. This wasn't about rage anymore. It was about control, and control was something I finally had again. The announcement came on an ordinary Wednesday morning. No warning, no build-up. My manager called me into his office, smiling the kind of smile that made my pulse quicken. "You've been consistent, sharp, and reliable," he said. "We're restructuring teams, and we'd like you to lead the new department merge." For a second, I couldn't breathe. Team lead. After everything, the years of rebuilding, the humiliation, the sleepless nights, it felt surreal. I thanked him, keeping my voice steady, but inside I was trembling. Not with fear this time, but power. The real shock came later, during the staff meeting when the new org chart appeared on the projector. I scanned the screen, and there it was. Under my name, Lily Matthews, Marketing Liaison, my sister, reporting to me. The air thickened instantly. I felt her eyes on me before I even looked up. When I finally met her gaze, her face was pale, lips parted in disbelief. Around the room, a few people exchanged subtle glances. They'd heard whispers of tension between us, but no one knew the truth. The irony, though, was palpable. After the meeting, she cornered me in the hallway, voice pitched low and sugary. "Wow," she said, forcing a laugh. "You really moved up in the world, huh? Guess I'll be working under my big sister now." I smiled, polite, measured. "Looks that way," I said evenly. "Let's make sure we keep things professional." Her eyes flickered. She tried to reach for that familiar charm, the same warmth she used to melt me in seconds. But it didn't work anymore. I was calm, composed, unreachable. In the following weeks, she tested me, arriving late to meetings, challenging decisions, pretending ignorance on tasks. I never raised my voice. I simply documented everything, addressed issues through formal channels, and copied HR on the emails. My restraint frustrated her more than any argument ever could, and slowly, the dynamic shifted. For years, she'd held the emotional power, the ability to break me with guilt or affection. But now, with every professional exchange, every forced, "Yes, ma'am," she felt it slipping. This wasn't revenge yet. This was the rebalancing. The beginning of her realizing that the sister she'd once underestimated was no longer the same woman she betrayed. It started quietly. An email from compliance requesting clarification on some irregularities in quarterly reports. Nothing unusual at first. These things happened during mergers. But when I opened the attached files, my pulse slowed to a steady, deliberate rhythm. I recognized the data instantly. The same inflated projections Nate had been submitting for months. The same fake metrics Lily had copied into presentations. I didn't rush. I didn't gloat. I simply replied, "Happy to assist. I can provide full documentation." Within a week, HR scheduled a formal meeting. The invitation included my name, along with Lily's, Nate's, and 2 executives from corporate. When I walked into the glass-walled conference room, the air was already thick with tension. Lily sat stiffly at one end of the table, eyes darting between her hands and the door. Nate leaned back in his chair, smirking, but the sweat on his temple betrayed him. "Thank you for coming," the HR director began, her tone polite but cold. "We've identified inconsistencies in several project reports connected to your department. We need clarity." Lily immediately jumped in, voice trembling but confident. "There must be a mistake. We've been working overtime." I opened my folder, sliding copies of emails and spreadsheets across the table. "If I may," I said softly, meeting the director's eyes. "Here's what I found during my internal reviews over the last quarter." The room went silent. I explained everything methodically. Timestamps, duplicate reports, fabricated numbers. I didn't add emotion or accusation, just facts. I'd learned that the truth, when spoken calmly, hits harder than anger ever could. Each page turned, each screenshot projected, was another layer of their deception peeling away. By the time I finished, the executives were no longer hiding their disgust. Nate tried to interject, muttering about system confusion and data migration errors, but the HR director cut him off. "These documents show deliberate manipulation," she said, voice clipped. "This isn't confusion, it's misconduct." Lily looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes were wide, wet, pleading. For a heartbeat, I almost saw the sister I once knew, but that illusion shattered the moment she whispered, "You set us up." I met her gaze steadily. "No," I said quietly. "You set yourselves up." The HR director spoke again, this time to security. "Please escort them out while we process termination." The next moments felt surreal. Lily's voice cracked as she tried to explain, but her words tangled into sobs. Nate slammed his fist on the table, shouting something about betrayal and jealousy. The guards guided them toward the elevator, their protests echoing down the hallway. I sat still, hands folded, feeling neither triumph nor pity, just a strange, peaceful exhaustion. When the doors closed behind them, the HR director turned to me. "Thank you," she said simply. "Your diligence protected this company. I nodded, barely managing a small smile. As I walked back to my desk, the weight of 3 years seemed to lift, not in a burst of joy, but in quiet release. Justice hadn't needed fireworks or revenge. It had unfolded naturally through truth. And in that stillness, I finally understood. The most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's dignity. It began with an email titled "Urgent Audit Review Required." I almost ignored it at first. After all, post-merger audits were common. But the moment I opened the attachments, a cold familiarity washed over me. The numbers didn't just look suspicious, they looked manufactured. I'd seen that kind of careless inflation before. The same shortcuts Nate used when bragging about his business ventures. Overstated revenues. Fabricated clients. Duplicate invoices under slightly different names. And Lily's marketing expenses? Half were ghost transactions. I didn't panic. I didn't even blink. I had spent months preparing for this possibility. Documenting everything without emotion. Now, it was time to let the truth breathe. By the following week, HR called me into a meeting. The subject line read, "Clarification Meeting, Departmental Discrepancies." When I entered the conference room, the tension was almost visible. Thick, metallic, suffocating. The executive director, the CFO, and HR manager sat on one side of the long table. Lily and Nate were already there, whispering nervously. The CFO started. "We've uncovered serious inconsistencies in multiple quarterly reports. Given your role, we need your clarification, Ms. Matthews." Lily straightened, her smile too bright. "There must be some confusion. I think the data migration messed things up." I opened the folder in my lap and slid a series of printed spreadsheets forward. "Actually," I said evenly, "the data migration had nothing to do with it. These are the original files before any edits." The projector flickered to life, displaying the document trail, emails, timestamps, file versions. I spoke slowly, clearly, like reciting facts in a courtroom. "You'll notice the financial projections increased by 40% between the initial draft and final submission. Here are the edit logs. Both changes came from Nate's login." Lily's accounts approved the numbers without verification. The room went still. Lily's breath hitched. Nate leaned back, crossing his arms, but his knuckles were white. "Are you accusing us?" he barked. "I'm not accusing anyone," I replied. "The records speak for themselves." The HR manager's pen tapped once on the table before she looked up. "These alterations directly violated internal compliance. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's falsification." Lily's eyes darted toward me, wide, panicked. "You knew," she whispered, voice trembling. "You were watching us." I met her gaze calmly. "I was doing my job." The CFO exhaled, sliding a termination packet across the table. "Effective immediately, both of you are dismissed. Security will escort you out." Lily's composure shattered. She pleaded, voice cracking. "Please, it's not what it looks like." But Nate exploded first, slamming his palm on the desk. "This is garbage. We've been framed!" His protest echoed uselessly down the hallway as security entered. I sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching without flinching as they were led out. Lily's mascara streaked down her cheeks, her shoulders shaking. For a fleeting second, I almost pitied her. But then I remembered the empty accounts, the eviction notice, the years of silence. This wasn't vengeance. It was balance. When the door closed behind them, the executive director looked at me. "You handled that with integrity," he said quietly. I nodded once. "Truth doesn't need to shout," I replied. And for the first time in years, I felt weightless. Not because they fell, but because I finally rose without losing my grace. 3 days after the audit fallout, I came home from work to find someone sitting on the steps outside my apartment building. The evening light was fading, soft and gold, and for a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Then she lifted her head. Lily. Her hair was tangled, her clothes wrinkled, eyes swollen from crying. She looked nothing like the confident woman who used to turn every room her way. Now she was just small, fragile. When our eyes met, she stood quickly, wiping her face. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "Nate's gone. He took everything, the car, the money. He blocked my number. I froze halfway up the steps. 1,000 memories surged, her laugh echoing through our childhood home, the way she'd steal my sweaters and say I was her hero, the call that started it all. My throat tightened, but I said nothing. She stepped closer. Please, just for a few days. I need a place to stay until I figure things out. I swear I've changed. I know what I did was unforgivable, but you're all I have left. Her voice broke on the last word, and it tore at something deep inside me, the part of me that had always wanted to protect her, to fix things, even when she was the one who broke them. But standing there, I also saw the wreckage she left behind, the eviction notice, the nights I cried into my pillow, the years clawing my way back from nothing. I took a slow breath. Lily, I said softly, I forgive you. Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope igniting. But, I continued, my voice trembling, I can't save you again. You have to face what you've done, on your own this time. She stared at me, disbelief and heartbreak colliding on her face. For a second, I thought she might scream or argue. Instead, she just nodded, eyes glistening. You really mean that, don't you? I do, I whispered. She turned away without another word, her figure disappearing into the fading light. I stood there long after she was gone, listening to the echo of her footsteps until they vanished completely. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat in silence, realizing forgiveness wasn't about her. It was about freeing myself from the hold she had on me. And for the first time in years, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. I used to think betrayal was something you could prepare for. That if you just loved enough, gave enough, trusted enough, people would never turn on you. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those who know exactly where to strike. In the months after Lily's visit, I often found myself standing by my window at night, watching the city lights flicker like 1,000 small lives unfolding at once. Somewhere out there, she was probably starting over. Maybe lost, maybe learning. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger when I thought of her. Just a kind of sad acceptance. Family betrayal leaves invisible scars. It's not just the money or the lies. It's the memory of laughter that turns sour, the way old photos start to hurt. There were nights when I'd scroll through pictures of us as children, 2 girls holding hands in front of a birthday cake, and wonder how those moments could ever lead here. But maybe that's what life does. It reshapes people. It tests how far love can bend before it breaks. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about letting her back in. It wasn't about pretending nothing happened. It was about releasing the weight of what she took from me. Not the money, but the trust, the hope, the sense of safety. By forgiving her, I wasn't saying she deserved peace. I was saying I did. Some evenings I'd catch my reflection in the window. Older now, wiser. A little harder around the edges, but also calmer. I no longer needed revenge. Watching Lily unravel under her own lies had been justice enough, but peace came from walking away and not looking back. As the city hummed below, I whispered a silent goodbye, not to her, but to the version of me who kept trying to save everyone else at the cost of herself. And in that moment, I understood something simple and profound. Sometimes closure doesn't come with an apology or a reunion. It comes with acceptance, and the quiet dignity of knowing you survived what was meant to break you. That night, I closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and finally, truly, rested months past quietly, each one softer than the last. My life had settled into something steady. Work, morning coffee by the window, the hum of a world that no longer felt hostile. Then one evening, as I sorted through a small pile of mail, I saw her name written in the corner of an envelope. Lily. For a moment, my hands trembled. I almost didn't open it. Part of me feared the chaos that used to follow her name. The guilt, the pleading, the excuses. But when I finally unfolded the letter, I found something I never expected. Her handwriting was shaky but clear. She wrote that she'd entered rehab months ago, that she'd been sober for 90 days, that she was working at a women's shelter, helping others find stability after losing everything. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't apologize either, not directly. But every word felt like the quiet echo of regret. She said she finally understood what she'd done. Not just to me, but to herself. How running had become her habit, and how losing me was her true rock bottom. As I read, a strange calm settled over me. There was no surge of triumph, no need to gloat or remind her of the past. Instead, I felt relief, a gentle, quiet kind of peace I hadn't known I needed. Because somewhere out there, she was facing her own reflection too. I placed the letter back in its envelope and tucked it inside my journal. Not to hold on, but to let go properly this time. I whispered a small prayer, not for her redemption, but for her peace. Standing by the window again, city lights stretching like constellations below, I smiled to myself. She had once taken everything from me, my savings, my trust, my sense of safety. But as the years passed, I realized she had also given me something in return: strength, clarity, and the understanding that what truly can't be stolen is self-respect.